Onye Afia, proudly brought to you by Qtix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.
The Igbo man at his core has always been resourceful, entrepreneurial. That's why we have the show Onye Afia. Now we have seen him grow, we have seen him build from nothing. Talking about the Civil War and how it affected the southeastern part of Nigeria. Over 50 years later, we have seen empires built. But today we're going to be discussing at its core the evolution of the Onye Afia spirit. What does it truly mean to be an Onye Afia? Or rather, to be Onye Afia, right? My name is Odera Collins, and I'm so glad to be on your screen today. And to help me dissect this topic now this is refreshing. Why do I say this is refreshing? We have a guest who has traveled the world and at the same time has decided to bring part of his business, his wisdom and his knowledge back to this region. I'm talking about no other than Eke Urum. He's the founder of Risevest, alongside some other startups. But today, he's our guest, and we're going to be dissecting this conversation with him. We'll be back after the break, and when we come back, we will pick up the conversation proper. Welcome back to Onye Afia. I still have in the studio with me, he hasn't left, don't worry, Eke Urum. Do you feel weird about me calling your full name?
No, I like it. It's cool. Most people just stop at AK. But,
and they just forget, please, I don't want to stress my tongue.
Right, exactly.
But what does it mean? Let's start from there.
AK means nature, right? The way you have Chineke, right, creation. But in this context, it means nature. Elianya means hope. Urum, to be fair, I'm not entirely sure. It has multiple shades of meaning, but I've never been very sure. So I'll hold on to this first too. But yeah.
How proud are you of your set of names? Because they're very, they're very distinct.
Yeah. I like them. I did have an English name, but I retired it when I was before I was 10. I just told my mom that because I had some American classmates and they all had American names. And I was like, I had some Indian classmates as well. They all had full Indian names. I'm like, why do we Nigerian kids all have a bunch of English names? So I was like, yeah, I'm not using that anymore. So I retired it. And I won't tell you, but
no, I wasn't gonna ask.
Okay, good.
Because I like the fact that you retired it early.
Yeah. So that's it. But yeah, I really like my names. They have a strong identity.
What was your mother's reaction to that?
I don't know. I think she laughed, but yeah, I kind of stopped. Because I was a kid. I was 9 years old or thereabouts. And so she was like, yeah, I'm sure you're joking around. But that was really the end of it. I never used it again. So, yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, let's talk about Onye Afia, right?
Sure.
You're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And unarguably, you're running one of the most successful startups in Nigeria. I know that's humility card you want to play it, but that's fine. That's fine.
That.
Where do you see yourself in the line of contemporary Igbo businessmen?
I think I see myself as, sort of a continuation of a chain, right? Every generation always has people who are doing things in different fields. And I don't think there's really been a break, right? So if you look back at every stage, even within the startup ecosystem, around 2012, you'd see a Jason Njoku, for instance, and then maybe a little bit before him. So there's always been, from my line of what I do, I think about people like the Pascal Doziers of the world that started in the 90s with banking, right? So fintechs is sort of the next generation of that. And even in Enugu now, Obioso, who I met in 2018 briefly, they're all young Igbo people within my age bracket, who are continuing a whole tradition of just, you care about a particular field and you want to build in it. So I just see myself as a continuation of that.
Of that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So if we're to talk, from a perspective of your experience, you've worked mostly a lot outside Igbo land, internationally, nationally. Where would you say that we are as Ndi Afia, right? Where would you say that we are on the scheme of things, as it is happening now in your experience, global international standards? Where are we? And what can we do?
To be candid, there's two ways I see that. On one hand, there's still a lot of Igbo people doing interesting things in pretty much every professional field. But in terms of what we are known for when it comes to entrepreneurship, I do worry that we're starting to fall behind in terms of what the cutting edge of that space should be. And I think that it's because when the technology era sort of, the world keeps evolving, and when the technology era kicked off, I think we were not necessarily at the forefront of it as a region, right? And the second thing is that I think we tend to, I know this for a fact, we tend to do things almost like in mass, right? Everyone is going in a particular direction. So when most of us are still doing the things that we all grew up doing, whether it's importation or, trading in the traditional sense, and even though the world is shifting, I don't think that we've kind of shifted with it, right? So I feel like the entrepreneurial class in the Southeast needs to try and get a sense of like, this is where the world is moving to. How do we catch up? We are actually in that position where we're playing catch up. Another thing that I also worry about, not to be like the bearer of bad news, but I do think that the world of, importation, which is what we live with, things are changing so much that it's not as profitable as it used to be. And it's also, the world is sort of gradually moving away from that space. And so we need to find out what's the next new thing and move in that direction. And maybe that's part of why this conversation is necessary. So yeah. So I'm seeing some signs that people are going there, but I don't think it hasn't hit critical mass yet. So
would you say that the bulk of us lack innovation?
I don't think so. And I'll tell you why I say that. When you talk to people who are traders today, for instance, I know from my experience with cryptocurrency that a lot of our trading class have been using crypto money since as far back as 2017, right? I know that many of them, they've moved business from email to WhatsApp. Many of our Igbo traders are using Alipay and WeChat to make payments in China, and even building like outposts right there in China too. So I do think we are innovative, but the thing is we're innovating within a set space, right? So within that space, we're solving a lot of, because to me, innovation is basically solving problems. So we're solving the problems that are necessary within a particular space, but we're not looking, rather than innovation, I would say it's maybe not as forward thinking or imagination. I think that's a better way of saying, we don't stop and ask ourselves, how should the world be in the next 20 years? And how do we start now to prepare for it? So we just
an angle of preservation, like from an angle of preservation.
Exactly. So that's where I think that we're dropping the ball a bit. So when you talk to our people, you know that, the capacity to innovate is there, but it's just that sense of thinking beyond the now and making plans for what is coming, not what we have at the moment. I do think that part needs a lot more work.
A lot more work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So say take, for instance, right, an Igbo businessman, an Igbo business trader walks up to you and is like, oh, hi, Eke, I have about 10 to 20 million naira and I want to invest, or in fact, he has this money, but he doesn't know what to do with it. I mean, not to turn this to a business class, but what would you tell him?
Okay. I think because of what I do, it's important to understand what are you trying to achieve. For instance, the traditional thing most people do with excess capital is they will invest it in real estate. They'll buy a house, they'll rent it out, which I think is a fool's errand, right? And I know it's a controversial statement to make, but it is a fool's errand.
We'll come back to that. We'll continue.
It's just not very great use of your money today. But what I'll tell him is, what are you trying to achieve? You want to preserve this capital, you have a different option, right? You have your T-bills, you have some other investments. If you are looking to earn a rate of return, a high rate of return, the business you're already doing, what kind of returns are you generating from it? Because sometimes the best use of your capital is to reinvest it in what you're already doing. But you then find that many of our traders, they don't know their numbers. They don't know the margins. They know what it costs to buy their stuff and sell it. But how profitable are you? What return on investment are you generating? How much can you get back on this money over time if you're investing in your business? And then if you don't want to reinvest in your business, you want to spread it into other assets, then there's several options. There are dollar investments, there are Nigerian stocks, there are US stocks, there are T-bills, Nigerian treasury bills that are earning a pretty solid return. And there's the universe of what you can do with money is a lot. But the most important thing is, do you have enough understanding of your current position, of what your business can deliver to you, and then what you yourself are trying to achieve financially? When you give me those answers, then it becomes easier to tell you this is what you should do.
Can you tell us why you think real estate is a fool's errand?
The goal of investments is to preserve your purchasing power, right? And that means that the return that you get from your money needs to at least beat inflation. It needs to cover for inflation and then earn extra, right? Otherwise, your money is not really growing. So you find people, they'll put money into real estate, and then the rent that they get from it is barely 5% or maybe, and inflation is at 20-something%. So you're actively losing money. The house is losing value. It's not very liquid. So even if you need cash at a short term, then maybe you have to mortgage it to borrow from the bank, or you have to sell it for much lower than you bought it, right? So it's a way to maybe fix capital somewhere and let it decline slowly over time. But if it's for where you put in money to make it grow, then real estate is not the best place to do it. If you want to do real estate, maybe look for real estate in either growing markets or abroad, or maybe do some ground up build. But that's not what most of them do, right? So there's nuances to it, but generally speaking, real estate is, I call it dead capital. It's just, you put money down there and it's dead.
Thank you very much. We'll be going on a short break, and when we come back, we will dive more into this conversation. See you soon. Welcome back to Onye Afia here on Afia TV. Remember, we're talking about the evolution of Onye Afia, and we have Eke in the studio. He has been teaching us, practically speaking. But now we're going to move away a bit from you lecturing us and you telling us about your company, Risevest. Yes. How's that been? I mean, how many years is it now?
We're 5 years in.
Half a decade.
Half a decade, yeah. It's remarkable in a way because it went by so quickly. But then we look at the things we're trying to accomplish, and there's still I feel like we're just getting started, right? But yeah, Rise is a product for us we're trying to solve the problem of giving people access to better investment options, because I think as far back as 2014, when you do the numbers in terms of what people are investing in, whether it's your properties, some of the, at the time, like bank deposits and even some T-bills at the era, they were all earning below inflation, like I said. And secondly, a lot of our investments were being impacted by devaluation. So you're making money, you're putting money away, you're growing in Naira, but then the exchange rates impact just cancels all your progress. And so the whole idea was that we need to give people access to a bunch of investments that we've selected because we already know that they are going to do well. They beat inflation, they're stable. Some of them are in dollars, some of them are in naira, but they are designed to give you long-term growth. And then we just allow you to plug into them and simplify the experience. And I think people have generally like resonated with that. So yeah, 5 years in, and I'm still very excited about the things that we're still trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, we're in the era where a lot of startups has folded. You know, I think the startup boom was 2020. It was 2019, 2020, 2021. It was almost as if you weren't in tech. I mean, I can't ask you that question, but yeah, that's how a lot of us felt. It was like, I see that we don't know. Yeah, so we've seen a lot of startups come and go, but here you are, 5 years later. But I want to tie this question back to identity. Would you say, or rather, what parts of your business, what parts of how you do things would you say was largely influenced by your cultural orientation as an Igbo man?
That's interesting. I don't know that I can answer that very well, right? Because I've only recently started to maybe see the connections between my culture in the practical sense and some of the things I do, right? I think growing up was more so like my family. I understood the dynamic of my family. My dad was an entrepreneur. His father was an entrepreneur. And I come from Abriba, so we have a culture of entrepreneurism, trade. So I grew up in that world, and so to me it was normal, right? And then a lot of the things I do in a practical sense, so my orientation to business in general, even when you talk about like the longevity of Risevest, which 5 years, like I said, it's not that long, but some of the things that has helped us is my belief that when you're doing business, your goal should always be to play the long game. Don't be in a hurry to maximize profits or make money in the short term. Always try and optimize for long term. I remember when I was young, my dad used to tell me that what kills a lot of businesses is that they try to make, at the time, Naira was still, so he would say they'll try to make 50 Naira, 100 Naira in a single transaction. And that the best way to do business is to make your money 3 Naira, 5 Naira at a time, but over a really long time, right? Because that way you're giving your customer more of the value than you're capturing. But then that keeps them coming back to you. It builds a relationship with you. And over time, it also gives you good word of mouth. So business is built over a really long time. So for us, it has influenced our pricing. In our space, I think we charge the lowest fees, 0.5%. And we only charge you that fee after we've generated returns for you, because we believe that let's create value for you as a customer. And then we capture a tiny bit. But if we keep doing it consistently over time, then our customer base will grow and the value will be clear for everyone. So that to me is how you build sustainable business. And again, that's something I learned from my father and then applied to a new field. So there might be other things that, you soak up and you don't pay careful attention. Well, another instance I'll tell you is most people that make money, I think here, maybe Nollywood has done a disservice to us culturally, where people have this idea that, there are some rituals that will make you make money, or there's a certain shortcut. But if you go talk to people who actually build businesses or entrepreneurs, they'll tell you that there is no shortcut for just hard work, right? And people, it's a bit of a cliche. Everybody tells you, you have to work hard. But go to Silicon Valley, go talk to the best investors in the world, go talk to the best startup people in the world. They still look for people who are just willing to outwork everyone else, right? And I think that culturally, people have started to forget that. But I remember my dad, because I complain sometimes that I work like 16 hours days, and I work every day, including weekends. And I used to think that was unique to maybe startup space. But I remember when I was growing up, my dad worked just as much. So he was an importer, and we have a warehouse space at the office where when his goods come in, they are sorting, they are packaging for different people, they are stacking all those bills, all those things. I grew up around that world. And my dad had to put a warehouse space in our house because when he gets home by 6 p.m. in the evening, he wants to continue that process because by the time, if you finish sorting quicker, you get to the market quicker, you sell quicker. So my dad would get home, have them offload at the warehouse at home, and he would be in the warehouse there sorting till like 10 p.m., right? So, and he always told me then that would always give him an edge because his customers knew that when other importers come in, it takes them about a week to sort. He turns this around in 2 days. So they know that, okay, he's going to move quicker, so we should buy from him. And he sells out faster than them, which means he goes back quicker. So that ability to, or that willingness to just outwork everyone is also culturally critical to doing business successfully. And I do think that I'll be doing us a disservice if I don't highlight the fact that those things, yes, they might be personal attributes, but they're also cultural attributes. Everyone that knows that you want to be an entrepreneur needs to know that that is part of what is required. So yeah, I guess that's it.
So at your core, you're a hard worker. And you
allegedly.
Allegedly core. Now, still on the conversation of identity, cultural orientation, Little Birdie told us that you know where I'm going to with this. Yeah. You do know, right? That you're a member of the, is it Ekpe or Ekpe? Ekpe society. So you are a member of the society. Now, I don't want us to talk
also
about
allegedly.
I don't want us to talk about that, the society at its core, but I'm more interested because you're a young person who is participating, in cultural heritage. And that's something you don't see regularly these days. I think what we even see in recent times is, there's Chimamanda spoke about it in one of her keynote speeches about how we're bastardizing culture and then, fronting the negatives or things that are not even part of our tradition as people are saying that that's what it is, right? So first of all, why did you choose to? Then secondly, how has that influenced your overall outlook, living in a modern world, being a traditional Igbo man?
Okay. Thanks for that question. I do. So there are several things that came together there. So I do want to first say that I'm a Christian, right? And I point that out because, people think that for you to embrace our culture and tradition, that somehow you kind of have to work at cross purposes with your Christian faith. And I do want to make it clear to people that no, there's no conflict, right? You have to know your cultural origins and your cultural legacy and the importance of them. And I think if more people understood what these things were in their real sense, what the purpose they served, then they would be more willing to uphold them and keep them going. So the second thing is that Abriba, my hometown, I think we have we're blessed in the sense that we happen to both modernize, but also retain almost all our traditional institutions. And so my dad played a role in keeping me connected to our culture. Me, my brothers, my siblings. I remember there's some rites that you have to do at like coming of age. We call it Ebanono, right? Your first killing a bird. So as a kid, you're supposed to go through that process. And then you get older, you have another thing you do. We call it Zarefa, where you form your age grade. And I did all of that, even from a young age. And my mom would be like, oh, no, don't take him, he's a Christian boy, he shouldn't be doing all that. And my dad would be like, no, he's also an Igbo man. He's an Igbo boy. He needs to know how, So growing up, that's why, to me, it didn't really feel like I had to do any extra work to become part of, whether it's Ekpe and, all the other things that joining my age grade, doing his RFA and doing all the other things that I'm still looking forward to. So it just became part of the fabric of being who I am, right? And then for Ekpe specifically, I'm sure there are aspects of it that may be considered, right, not very Christian, right? I'm sure. But the truth of the matter is that most of the current engagement of it is more cultural memory, right? It's cultural memory. It's cultural communication. It's meaning. It's carrying. They'll tell you stories of people that have done things previously, and they preserve them in ritual and in memories and stories that you then learn and pass on to the next person. And so we don't do anything that is particularly anti-Christian, right? But I do think it's critical and it's important because if we don't do these things, there's a huge part of our identity and our cultural memory that will be lost. And a lot of people that grew up in the modern world or modern society, they think that those things don't matter, right? But the reason I think they matter, well, because the reason I know they matter is that usually when things start, when you're going through, asking questions or trying to understand how your society works, there's a lot of why questions. Why are these things done this way? Why did this happen this time? Why is this place this way? And I find that those cultural memories, those stories, help me answer a lot of the whys. Yeah. And without that, I don't know that people have the kind of self-awareness it requires to actually be themselves and operate in modern society, right? So I do see a lot of our young people who are, on one hand, very knowledgeable, but on the other hand, very ignorant of themselves. And I think that that's why institutions like Ekpe continue to be relevant.
Okay, so just to wrap the entire conversation, it's been so interesting talking to you. Very, very, distinct, diverse conversation. What must we do to preserve the Onye Afịa spirit?
Okay, I think we should talk more. I see a lot of people who do business or who trade or who are entrepreneurs. They don't tell their children what they do. They don't explain to their children. So you see them educate their children in some fancy education and push them outward. I think we should allow our people to understand what we do and the mechanics of it and how it happens. That's one. I do think that we as Ndi Afia need to embrace structure, right? Embrace storytelling. We are notoriously not very good at storytelling. I think that we should embrace that more because it helps. So there's this movie, Afia, that helped so many people understand apprenticeship and how the incubation system works when it comes to growing entrepreneurship. So I think we should do more storytelling. We should also embrace structure, numbers, because as business formalizes and your bank, you want to scale up your business, you need financing. But for financing to come in, your numbers have to make sense. I think we need to embrace that. And lastly, I think we need to also embrace partnership, right? A lot of times we believe in one man army, but
Eke and Sons.
Exactly, Eke and Sons, and the world has changed beyond that. The scope of things requires collaboration among many people if we're going to keep moving forward. So yeah, those are some.
Thank you very much, Eke. It's been interesting talking to you. Thank you for all the insights that you've shared.
Thank you
Sure,
so
I can
much.
apply for one-on-one business class.
Not now.
Not now.
but I do think that, it's been fun talking to you as well. I do think that people like you guys are important. And what you're doing here, and hopefully if you ever decide to run for office in the future, I do think that, seriously. You remember we had this conversation. But I do think that culturally more people there should be people who are in the market, dealing with the market and what it requires. There should also be people who are sort of outside of it, but helping people understand. The big picture.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you guys are doing.
Thank you very much. We're doing our best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. We have come to the end of today's episode. I truly hope you enjoyed it because I did. And I hope it was as insightful for you as it was for me. And now you have heard it yourself. It's not just about money. Posterity should be a huge part of the conversations that we're having as Ndi Igbo. Until next time when I come your way again, I remain your ever beautiful Odera Collins. This is Onye Afịa. Bye for now.
Onye Afia, proudly brought to you by Qtix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.